So I think we can go ahead and just get
Okay.
started.
Yeah, we can just
Yeah, thanks
jump
for being
in.
here, everyone. Go
Of
ahead.
course, I have slides to structure it a bit, but we can also keep it loosey goosey. I just no, I don't work for Scratch, but I don't think I would want to work for them. But I don't know, that's a whole nother story. But I really do love Scratch. It is like it's like the language that brought me back into programming because like for a while, like I went to one of those really bootsy software engineering, what do you call it, like boot camps. I mean that's a whole nother story, but like that made me really hate software engineering. And then like uh yeah, oh yeah, here's a little, yeah, so I was like driving. So yeah, here's a little story about how I kind of got me to Stretch. It's kind of like what do you call it, the scenic route story. So like I was driving to my friend's restaurant that I was working at after that boot camp thing, and I was like, oh, I was like, I wanted to be in the kitchen and like do stuff and have an active brain. And then I saw the coder school sign. I was like, whoa, what the heck is that? And then and that's how I actually applied for the job. And interesting thing was, no, I didn't know anything about Scratch at the time, but like, but you know, I still went through the interview and took the test and everything. And then just learning about Scratch or just teaching it really brought me back into programming, and it made me love it. So just like, you know, palms up. Let's talk about the real talk about Scratch. All right, hi, my name is Jimmy. I think really only like JD and Nick and Sachi know me, and everybody. Oh, but Nico, we did talk about. I think we talked about your Canadian like circus friends.
I did.
That was
Or
right.
we
Okay,
did.
okay. So I remember that. It was by the fireside. Okay, I remember that. That was great. It's your sister, right? It's your sister. Is that right? Okay, okay. Yeah, I thought that was so cool. I just remember that. That was also a nice background thing too. Hello, Abel. All right, so my name is Jimmy. I am the STEM makerspace teacher at Longfellow Middle School in Berkeley. And so just a quick background of that. I like to think of STEM, or I call STEM makerspace, teaching that as a very, it's like shop. If everyone remembers shop class, you know, your dads and your uncles like, oh yeah, I used to take shop back in the day. Well, this is kind of like shop class, but with 2021 technology. So, you know, post, what do you call it? Post Mythbusters, you know? So a lot of that is teaching not only the analog stuff or teaching woodworking, but it's also teaching the digital things. And so I do have a lot of classroom time. Actually, this whole week is about getting back into Scratch with all of my middle schoolers. I've been a code coach since 2018. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. I think. I'm pretty sure. Again, hashtag boomer brain, my bad. And the languages that I'm very comfortable with, just because, you know, I'm always with them. Scratch. And then I would say like I've been getting a lot better at Python in terms of teaching it. Of course, like, you know, I don't know all the libraries. That's pretty crazy to know all the libraries. And my first love was HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which I took back in my first year in Berkeley. And then I hated the class, but I loved HTML, CSS. That was cool. But the textbooks back in the day, oh my gosh, I just said back in the day, back in my day. Okay, all right, so, and I'm really fascinated right now by Game Builder's Garage, the Node-on system. If you don't know Game Builder Garage, it's a new Nintendo Switch game that came out in June. And just a fascinating, it's kind of like Nintendo's version of Unity, was it Unity or Unreal's Blueprint? So it's a really great gateway into like learning how to manipulate nodes and that kind of language. Also very fascinated by Super Mario Maker 2 because it's so easy to make do level design, and continually trying to learn the command line and Vim, which is almost Vim possible. Sorry, I had to make corny jokes. How I learned Scratch. I learned it through just a lot of, well, I do have a slide later. I'll tell you exactly how I learned it, but through a lot of just tiny projects, you know. So, you know, of course, yeah, I grew up in Berkeley, but, you know, I didn't know the guy that made Snap. But yeah, a lot of it was just like through grunt work of just, you know, just figuring little tiny projects out. And I think that's, you know, so if there's like, oh, I just want to get the first 5 minutes and bounce, that's my tip, is just to build a lot of tiny little things. And that's how I learned. But I'll tell you later about a little story about how I did that. Kind of goes along with that scenic route thing. But yes, welcome to teaching the most useful and transferable skill ever. Because I know, you know, code coaches, of course, this might be your first time code coaching, or you might have mentored back in high school. And I know, some of you might not say with code coaching, but whether you become an engineer or a manager, most likely a parent, probably a grandparent, a caretaker, a pet owner, teaching, I always just like to say that teaching is the most useful and transferable skill ever. So yeah, your time will not be wasted. It will be, as a code coach, whether you're new or old, the salary never, how do I say, values it in America at least, but it's the most useful skill ever. So be proud of that, and cultivate a lifelong relationship with teaching. And yes, sometimes it's scary to be a teacher. Yeah, I'll be real with it. When I first started code coaching, I was, like, I was really scared. I was like, oh my gosh, like, how do I do this? It's such new territory of like how to actually teach coding, because it's such a new thing, but or relatively new, but it is a really, I like to call it the golden age of um, coding platforms, if you will. There's so many tools, and if you go to like the Computer Science Teachers Association conference, which I recommend, even if you might not go into CS education later, it's basically our people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna go to these conferences. It's an excuse to go to a lot of these different American cities. So, and I didn't know it existed until a couple years ago, but it's called CSTA, Computer Science Teachers Association, and they hold an annual conference for CS education teachers. But yeah, it's scary to be a teacher, but with all the tools that we have, it's not that scary to be a CS teacher anymore. And so I this is going to sound like a, how do I say, is it controversial, I guess? Oh, okay, well, I guess how do I say, counterintuitive, but that we always say, like, the customer is always right. And I'm going to put this out there, and what made me so scared was in thinking about, as a older person teaching a younger student. Oh, the younger students know like technology, like they can use iPads when they're babies. But the student isn't always right, and that's the one thing that really tripped me up mentally when I was like starting to code coach. Um, and I don't know, there was a part of it, and I was reading some books about it, and that's a hint into how I started learning it. But the biggest thing, I think, when you're teaching Scratch or as you're starting as a code coach, is to remember to teach students first and coding second. So taking time to learn the coder's interests, the student's interests, experience programming goals, taking notes, of course, notes, writing your notes after your sessions. That really helps you process things and helps you become a better Scratch teacher. But what do I mean by teach students first? That's kind of weird. Oh, sorry about the fire engine. Oh, telegraph. Okay. So teach students first. The heck does that mean? Really, it means teaching students, coder school students, about how to be coder school students, which is like, that's kind of what? A computer is a computer. Coder school student is a coder school student. Well, I've been thinking about this a lot. And then finally, like, I went to like a training that I found from CSTA, and then brought me to code.org, which, if you don't know, they're really affiliated. Well, they're affiliated. Actually, I think they're closely related to Microsoft. I gotta look up that again. I gotta Google that. But code.org is a really great platform. Right now, I'm using their CS Discoveries curriculum, and I think, or what my conclusion right now in 2021, after a couple of years of code coaching, is we also got to teach students at the core of it, the problem solving process. So I didn't really formalize this until like this past year. Was like, oh yeah, that's actually what we're doing. Whether we're working a student through Scratch through their very first project, or we're trying to debug something, we put them through the problem solving process, and we scaffold this. Sorry, I'm going to use a lot of teacher words, where we define what the problem is, we prepare them from the problem, we reflect on that problem, and then we try out something. So yeah, that sounds very formal, and sorry, these first couple of slides are very preachy. As you get older, you get very preachy. Okay, so but yeah, the problem solving process is also helpful for putting your pants on in the morning. I had to put some toilet humor in these slides. Okay, so but actually this is true. No, this is true. This is true. Think about it, right? Like, actually, here, let's do this right now. We'll kill the clock. Putting on your pants in the morning, defining the problem, which would be, oh, I don't have any pants. That's defining the problem. Prepare. So I need to go get pants. Define. Oh wait, try. Oh wait, no, is it prepare? Yeah, no, it's try. It's try. So try putting on your pants and reflect. Do the pants fit? Are these the pants I want to wear that day? All right, so end of the toilet humor. But really, the define is these steps. And if you were to break them down, what problem are you trying to solve? So you can, of course, take this whole framework and apply it to as you think about your Scratch projects. What problem are you trying to solve for defining, all the way to brainstorming with your students about how to prepare for that Scratch problem, to trying it out, so trying these different blocks, and then reflecting on if it didn't work. But all that said, again, how did I learn about Scratch? So right after the interview with Lena, I like ran to the Berkeley Public Library and I rented every single book on Scratch. That's totally what I did. I went to the kids section and like, yeah, it was on the 5th floor at the time, and then took them all out. So again, that's actually how I learned Scratch. Just took out every single book I could. And actually this brings me to another thing too, which is, you know, like as we talk about what, how do I teach you Scratch? And a lot of it is, well, we are, again, in 2021, and we are standing on the shoulders of giants. There have been so many people and hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been put into making Scratch material. So whether you're a beginner code coach in Scratch or a veteran code coach, I mean, you know, it's taken me a couple years to go, you know what? I'm just going to use the Scratch materials that there have been hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in developing these materials and been time tested. So why not use them? And I find that using coding cards, especially for, well, I've been using them for everywhere from 6th graders to even 10-year-olds, but the coding cards exist in physical form. Actually, at the coder school, there are sets of those coding cards. So they're really great. They're just really great for teaching and prompting students. And you can download the PDFs from the Scratch website. And also on top of that too, one book I really like is 25 Scratch 3 Games for Kids by Max Wainwright. I'll even go so much as like, for that, I think of one particular student, and I'll mention her again because I think she's really key in understanding how to teach Scratch in 2021, Keisha. But what I do with Keisha is actually with this book, I actually, even if she started making Scratch projects, I just started from page 1. And then we would start building those basic games, like the very first project. And then it's written that it's prompted, and you can like go step by step with projects. And so for me, I think, because I also remember when I was first starting to teach Scratch, I was like, oh my gosh, like in my head, it was so stressful to go like, I was so like anxious about, I had anxiety about like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know, like what bugs are going to come up in this session. It kind of made me dread things. And I was like, ooh. And I, you know, as I reflected on it, because that was a problem, was I had anxiety during Code Coach, see, bringing back the problem solving process. I started thinking, hey, wait, like, why am I stressing out over this? And so going back to these books was really nice. And with, you know, I'm just, Keisha, for example, I was like, wow, this is so much more pleasant to teach. The fact that I have this book here, and we go through this, and I, you know, I really, you know, actually, when you think about teachers too, teachers all have teachers guides, and so code coaches too. Like, I know, like Coder School, we have some projects and some materials, but then also we have all these official materials too that you can totally rely on. Sorry, as I go on, I know I've been talking super fast. Any quick questions real quick, or like, oh, that name of that, or anybody? No? Okay. And I think, oh yeah, Coach Steven, yes.
Yeah. So what kind of projects are in Scratch 3 games for kids? Like, are they just like fundamental, or do they progress throughout the book?
Yeah. Oh, are you talking about the 25 Scratch 3 games?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, so yeah. So the interesting thing about that one is, it doesn't. It teaches from a very project-based perspective, and it's divided up into 5 sections. So there's basically level one, which are like these really like cookie clicker games and like chase, cat chasing the mouse games. So really simple, like super simple on the surface mechanics where you're not dealing with, say, broadcast receive statements, for example, but it's just very like how do I say, very high level. Like you can just see, like pretty much you can see the sequence of how that code runs. And then it levels up. Level 2, there's a little more complication. Level 3, then you're dealing with like broadcast receive, and then how to like trigger certain backdrops or like working with XY coordinates. So it's really scaffolded in a really like very friendly way. Um, and what I find with it too, as you're teaching from that, um, or when you're teaching, and I'll go into this later, but essentially like you want to get your students excited about projects, right? And so let's say there's like the very first level project. I think it was like this one crystal game in level 1, and I was about to teach it because I was like, oh yeah, that's the next project I should do for Keisha, because we finished that first game. But I was like, oh my gosh, I do not have a demo game. But it's okay because everybody's used this book in Scratch. So I just went to the Scratch query and just searched for that very name. So I could have a demo so I can show Keisha so I can get her excited about it so she'll buy into the game. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but demos are like super important to have because a demo, wait, what is it? A picture says 1,000 words. A demo speaks of all, I don't know. There's no saying for that, but always have demos. Like that's a really great way to get students excited about a project. Yeah, because actually it goes back to a bit of like, when you get a student, you inherit a student from another code coach for the first time, and they have like all these wants and wishes for certain games, and I'm just like, I've had like those students. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to build that thing. And for me, the worst times I've had with coaching sessions are like when I would try to do that thing, but I didn't feel comfortable teaching those concepts, for example. And so I think it's always best to stay within your comfort zone in a certain sense, or never feel like you're always chasing like this student want of like, oh, like I want to build like a multiplayer cloud system. Like, whoa, slow down. Rome was not built in one day, and you also got to help students understand that too. That I think this is the biggest thing too of like, there are so many video games out there. We live in this world now where there's like it just like from Minecraft to I don't know, like Knockout City. But I also think there's this perception that, oh wow, since I can do Scratch, I can build like this multiplayer game. But what you have to teach students too is that to make even, I don't know, Knockout City, which is not like Black Ops Cold War, but that took like hundreds of people to build that game. And so that's also a disconnect that I also teach my students is like, whoa, AAA games or even indie games, it's a lot of work. And, even though it's easy to build a simple Scratch game, it's still a lot of work to like make a really decent video game. So that's a disconnect I also teach my students too, or I think that all code coaches should. But then also, on top of those, going back to like these, really like respected books in the community, it's also to get creative too. And, stop and smell the roses, or, raise your head and look around, and even just like go back to the video games that, like one, I mean, Pong is, there are so many Scratch tutorials on Pong, but I think the other one is too, like I was like, oh, Pong is not the only Atari game. Like there's this one Switch renewal for Atari games, and like it's like 150 Atari games. So I just picked it up and played it on Friday, and I was like, ooh, maybe like what I can do for certain sessions, or if you're like run out of projects, is to look at these old Atari games and go, hey, maybe we can recreate this one game. Because what I love about Atari games is, one, they're super simple, and I would call it minimalist video gaming, where really the mechanics are all that matter, and it's not about the graphics. So, so I found inspiration in that. Also, if you look on that right side, Wario, the Wario game, the recent one, is like super creative. And like, if you were to show that to any of your code coaching students, they would love it. I know it, guaranteed. And so from a creative standpoint, I'm like, just playing through that Wario game, I think you get a lot of ideas as a code coach too, that you won't necessarily find in the Scratch repositories too. And also Nintendo designers are the best like in the world. So why not learn from them, right? So you know, I mean, stop and smell the roses, look around you, like in the games that you play, and get inspired by that for creative prompts too. Or little things like go to the featured project section of Scratch, as well as pick 2 random sprites. And, you know, for example, or, you know, just coming up with your own creative prompts too. Or Harvard has a creative computing curriculum you can look at too. Or just, you know, Scratch projects, Google it, and there are going to be blog posts every day from somebody in the world. But, you know, just get creative about it. So, or for example, even use world events, current events. I brought this up. See, and if you looked at this, the timestamp was March 11th, 2020. This was a project I did with one of my students, Sage, where we were like, you know, everybody was of course, naturally freaking about the coronavirus. And I was like, hey, so I just looked up on Scratch and looked up the coronavirus. And then I was like, all right, and I think me and Sage were the very first like remote learning session. And so I was like, hey, as an icebreaker, let's not freak out, Sage. We're going to make a coronavirus game. I don't know. But, you know, taking a current event and just getting creative with that too. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, having fun. I think I wanted to bring this up. I don't know if I could have maybe placed this in somewhere else on the slide deck. But I just wanted to mention this too. There's one thing that I think that I made when I was beginning to code coach was, you know, a student would like say this feature and I would just like try to walk them through it completely. And it didn't feel good because it felt like I was doing all the work. And you got to remember, as a code coach, you want to get your students to do all the work. And, you know, I'll show you later about like how I use prompting, you know, whether perfect or imperfect. But I just remember this one session I had, and I'm bringing up Keisha because we've had such wonderful sessions after, you know, many weeks of getting to know each other. She was like, oh, I get to use my brain. And she just blurted that. And I was like, whoa. And to me, that was like this highest form of a compliment as a teacher. We were like, whoa, that was so cool. But I was starting to reflect on like, you know, why she said that. I think, you know, a lot of that comes into a certain technique in the way that I prompt students. And this is again through just, you know, years of just not only teaching ESL, but also, you know, just the many students that I've had. Oh, and before I forget, I could have done my slides better, but I also wanted to mention this Scratch, Griff Patch. If you don't know Griff Patch is one of the most famous Scratchers, who is like a Java developer by day and one of the best Scratchers by night. He actually, I think he's been quoted as saying, I love Scratch, like, and it shows, like he's building Scratch tutorials all the time. But he also made this really awesome Chrome plugin where you can search for certain blocks. So before I forget, you definitely should write this down with whatever student you have. This tool is invaluable, where you can use, basically it's a search engine for all your blocks that you plug into your Chrome browser when you're logged in Scratch. So just wanted to mention that before I forget. But what I'm going to do right now is, well, first off, before we jump into some live Scratch coding, because I think that's really important to be able to live Scratch code. But also, you know, and oh yeah, I should have did this at the beginning. Everybody, if you can wear your student hats, there you go. If you can wear your student hats, and just go back to the beginner's mind, the Zen beginner's mind of being a student. You know, age ain't nothing but a number. You know, you don't have to pretend you're 8, but maybe that's kind of fun. Maybe you pretend you're 8 right now. But before we do into some live Scratch coding, anybody have any questions about all those things? Again, sorry about speaking so fast, but questions again? No. Okay. Again, questions later. You know, I'll send you my contact. But live Scratch code. We're gonna jump into live Scratch code. So if everybody can put on their student hats, we're gonna jump into some live code. But before I do that, I just want to show you. I hope I set up this right. I did set it up right. Thanks. Yesterday, Jimmy. Okay. So this is Mr. Trans Space Race, and let me just show you a demo. class, this is what we're going to build today. And as students, or also maybe slight teacher's hat, also just notice just the way that I'll talk students through a project, just to show you like how we get students to use their brain. But anyway, but before we do that, students, yes, Mr. Trans Space Race, where we have, oh yeah, I did it. Yep, it's kind of bringing in current events. Interesting. Watch out for orange. But as you can see, students, what do you notice, everybody? You notice what's moving right now? What do you notice? Sachi, what do you notice? You're quiet over there. No, Sachi, what do you notice? What do you see, Sachi?
The Donald Trump head is randomly jumping different
Randomly,
positions.
keep that in mind, Sachi. Random, that's a great keyword. Nico, do you notice anything as we press on the green flag? What's happening in here? What's this game about?
Everything only starts moving when you press the green flag.
Oh, everything only starts when you're pressing. Interesting. Anybody else want to share anything that they see that's interesting about like this little game here? Anybody see anything happening? No, but well, regardless, we're gonna start making this today. And if you want to, I can also just show you just a little bit of the code just to give you a preview. But we're just gonna do a simple thing where we're gonna make all this. But hey, don't be scared. It's all right. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start coding with it. So, what we do is we're gonna. So if you wanna watch along, totally cool. If you wanna have your screen and code along with me, that's totally cool too. Later on, I also made some videos where you can watch it after the fact. So anyway, it's choose your own learning. All right. So, but we're just going to walk through right now, just little bite size. We're not going to make the whole thing because that's going to take a lot of time. But just right now, we're going to just create. So you're going to press create. That's a big word for make. We're going to make this project right here. And so right now, we saw that we made the Space Race game, but we see, what do we see right now? We see Scratch the Cat. But did we use Scratch the Cat in the game, or how could we make that different? Should we use Scratch the Cat? I don't know. I could take a poll, but it's been a while since I've used. Oh wait, oh my gosh, I got stuff in the chat. Fire truck just passed my. Oh, fire truck. Oh, okay. I guess we live next to this. Actually, interesting. All right. And then JD, don't forget to. Oh yes, yeah. Camera needs to be on. Okay. All right. Sorry. We saw not Scratch the Cat, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna replace it with rocket ship. All right, so I'm gonna get my Scratch the Cat, and then I'm just gonna get the rocket ship. And then usually when I do this, it'll be like, oh, Mr. Trent, oh my God, you do that again. So usually I do things 2 or 3 times. So if you're teaching a code class of 4, or even with one student, it's like that first time is usually just too fast. So I usually find myself repeating myself and then walking through them again. But right now I got the rocket ship, and whoa, it's kind of too big versus the other one. So anybody know, like anybody here, you can write in the chat because I have that window out. Anybody know how I can shrink this rocket ship? Because it was kind of smaller, wasn't it? Wasn't it a little smaller? Like, should I do it with changing the number? Or maybe Nico or Nick, how can I change the size of this rocket ship? Anybody? If you just want to write in the chat, that's cool. Or if you want to unmute yourself.
You change the size.
Change the size. Yeah, so we could change the size just like Coach Steven says. We can change the size here. We could do that, but I mean, so that's great. Though it totally worked. I also like to recommend, because I think that's totally a right answer. We can also get the green flag. I always like to try to run it through the code. So we can set size by block. So that way later, if we start the game again, get these blocks right here. This one has to do with looks. Anyone know? Looks, is it looks or motion to set size? Anybody know? And so sometimes I play stupid because sometimes I'm stupid during these sessions. So anybody know? What is it in the purple blocks? The blue blocks? Anybody know? Set size. Oh, I see it. Do you see it too? I see it. You can set size right there in the purple blocks or the look blocks. And then I like to run it and change that to 50, like Coach Steven says. So I set size. So even if it's 100, but I start the project, it will run through the code and set it to 50. All right. And so just one more thing, couple more things I want to do right here. Actually, what should I do next? So for Space Race, we got the rocket ship. What can we do next with this rocket ship? What can we make it do? Anybody? Nico or Brandy or Sachi? What could we do next?
You can add motion to it. So like when you click the arrow keys, it moves.
Whoa, Sachi, that was a big word. What's motion? Motion? Like, you mean like local, like trains? What's motion, Sachi?
It's like adding the function, adding code so that the rocket ship can move around to this like wet thing screen.
Oh, so we gotta make it move. Okay. Um, okay, so yeah, okay. Oh, so Sachi, yeah. So Sachi, yeah. So she's saying we should make it move. Okay, so how do we make it move? What's like the first, like where do we make the rocket ship go? Like, how do we make it move? What's like the very, should we go up and down? You guys should we go up and down? Sound good, Steven? Up and down? Should we go up and down?
Sure.
Let's go up and down. All right, Steven or anybody. How do we get the rocket ship to go up? How do we do that? Up arrow key.
We could find a blog and events that states when we click on a
Events.
specific arrow key.
Okay, so events. What color is events? That's a big word. What's events? Is that like party? What's events?
See the yellow circle?
Yellow. Oh, I know yellow. Ah, yellow. I like yellow. Okay, wait. So we got yellow, yellow, and then what do we do next? What do we? Oh, what are we doing? What's our problem again? We're trying to do what? What are we trying to make?
We're trying to make our rocket ship move
Oh,
by
we're
pressing on a key.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, I was just thinking about like the dance tomorrow. So or like that bully tomorrow. Oh wait, so oh yeah, we want to make it go up. And okay, oh yeah, we want to make it go up. Wait, what do we do? Oh yeah, when space key press. Wait, did you say that, Steven? Sorry, there was a booger in my nose and like I totally forgot and like I'm so distracted by life. Oh, space arrow. Oh, you mean the up arrow? Do I use the up arrow? Oh, okay, the up arrow. Okay, so we do the up arrow. Wait, now what? Well, what do we do next? Because we're trying to make it go up. Rocket ship goes up. So, so many words. So many colors. What do I do now? Anybody know? Do I do looks block, sound block? Maybe I should just open up a tab and play Minecraft. No, wait, no. I should focus. When up arrow. Anybody know? Should we change X or change what? Well, actually, wait. I'm so confused. Are we gonna change something right now? Is that right? Do we change it? Lena, do you like if we're going up, do we change the X or do we change the Y? No.
Well, if we're moving up, we'll be
Change the
moving
Y.
up.
Oh yeah, we changed the Y. Yeah, let's change the Y. Wait, let's test it out. And before I get students to run the code, because they're so quick to just pressing that green flag, like, whoa, before you run any of your scratch code and press the green flag, before you run that run button in Python, always before you run the code, what will happen when you run the code? Predict what will happen. I always like to slow students down. That's like the latest technique I've been doing the past couple months is like slowing students down, going, what will happen when we run the code? And then they'll say like, oh, it's gonna work. And I'm like, be more specific. What are we trying to do here? Oh, it'll go up when we press up arrow. Like, you sure? Okay, yeah, I'm sure. And then they press it, and then you do it. Wait, is it working? It's working! And oh, the students, they kind of like jump for joy and they're yes. Or they're more like, Steph Curry when he makes a three. It's like, yes. But yeah, that was like a recent technique I've done is just getting the students to predict what's going to happen or what's going to print out. And then they run it. And then it really gets them kind of thinking about it and really taking ownership of what that was. So, I just think of my recent students where I do that. I do the mantra of like, or with a Python student, I'm going, WWPD, what will Python do? Oh, no. What will Python display? Or WWSD, what will Scratch do? So I like to like repeat that mantra before like students run the code. But anyway, so yeah, we got up and change Y. Thank you for that, Steven. Thank you for that, Lena. And you're like, what? X and Y. So for a lot of beginner students, I also like to bring the backdrops. This is kind of confusing for them, but you go to backdrops here. And then what we do, I like to choose X and Y for all my students that are beginning in Scratch. Because right here, you can see the X and the Y. And so when they start programming the X and the Y, they'll understand that, they'll actually see what that actually means. Because they just see a blank white screen. I mean, and actually, usually the students that we'll teach on average, like 8 to 10 years old. I'm not sure if they're getting their X and Y coordinates, but just in case, I like to have this backdrop there. And then they go, oh my gosh, like, Mr. Nick, where did my code go? I'm like, don't worry, remember, it's in the rocket ship. And so that's something you got to think about. Another little thing here of like backdrops versus sprites. But anyway, we got up arrow, it changes Y. So class, and I'll just do this. We'll just do down, left, and right, and then we'll jump into some other things. Up arrow goes Y. So class, anybody, if up, we change Y by 10. What would be the next thing we should do? Well, anybody? Nico, Sachi, anybody? Lena, or everybody at once? Oh, I got it. Okay, in the chat, because we're still in Zoom mode, write down, but don't press enter yet. We're gonna do a chat waterfall. I want you to write down the next thing you think we should do. Okay, so it could be a sentence, it could be like a direction. Just write it down in the chat, but don't press enter yet. I'm gonna give you about 10 seconds. What is the next thing that we should do? That's my question of the moment. Write it, but don't press enter yet. All right, and then in 5, 4, we're gonna press enter. 3, whatever you have. 2, press enter. Chat waterfall. Oh, okay, so Coach Steven says when down arrow key press, we're gonna change by ooh, I think Steven might be onto something. We're gonna move down, Nico says. Move the rocket ship down. Sachi says implement the left and right. All of these are great ideas. It looks like by consensus, because we did up, we're gonna do down, but don't worry, Abel, we're gonna do left and right too, because we're not leaving you out, Abel. All right, so and let's go kind of crazy right now. All right, so you can unmute yourself and tell me what's the next block we should get, or the color of that next block. Where should we go? Maybe when down arrow key press, where do I find it? Yellow, orange, turquoise. Is that turquoise? Anybody know? Yellow. Is it yellow? Anybody? Everybody. How about everybody? I shouldn't say it. Anybody? Everybody. What's the next color we should click? Should it be sound or should it be events? Sound or events? And if you notice, I'm just giving 2 choices. Sound or events? Events. Thanks, Nico. So that's also one of my other techniques is I like to call it like binary questioning. Because I remember when I was beginner teacher of like asking like, so student with an infinite mind, what do you think? And to ask a student such a big question is like, it's hard, right? It's like an abyss of like being able to answer that. So like one little trick to make my students feel a lot smarter is I like to just narrow it down and go, is it the red pill or the blue pill? Is the answer yes or is the answer no? Are you going to choose events, the yellow, or control, the orange? And that's a lot easier to answer as a student,
That's
right?
brilliant, Jimmy. That's super, super smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way more inclusive, and especially for
Right.
kids who are shy and get overwhelmed, like having those 2 choices.
It's just totally, it's easier to answer. I mean,
Yeah.
even as we are older adults, so much easier to answer, is it yes or no? But I totally forgot, especially when you get nervous and you're in the moment of teaching, but always, that's like my go-to is like, you just go back to a question where you just go, is it red pill or blue pill? Is it the sound or events? Oh, it's events. Like Nico says, it's events. What we're doing, let's go back to that problem solving process. What are we trying to do? What's our problem right now? Oh yeah, we're trying to program down. So when space, what do I do here? What do I press that? Oh yeah, I do press that. Okay, I press down. Okay, and then everybody, you can write it in the chat now. No chat waterfall. Write it down now. What do we change? What do we change? Do we change X or do we change Y? Change X or Y? What do we do? Everybody write in the chat. You can write it right now. Press enter. Change Y. Okay, we're going to change Y. All right. We're going to put that in the blue blocks. Change Y. And then let's just get to change Y by -10. Okay. Well, usually I talk about positive and negatives real quick, but just so like everybody knows this. But for students, it's it's something to keep in mind of what's common sense to us. Remember, some students are like, positive, negative, what does that mean? X and Y. And so just remember to go back to that beginner's mind of like, it's just safe to assume that a student knows nothing about what you're going to teach. and that's always the safest place to start as a code coach, is like, let's just assume that the student doesn't know anything about X or Y or directions. And so, okay, let me just finish doing this, because, it always feels good to complete something. Oh, but before we go next, one thing, we just added down arrow, change Y by -10. So before I run this code, everybody, what's going to happen when I run the green flag? Everybody, what's going to happen? What WWSD, what will Scratch do? What will Scratch do? Everybody in the chat, what will Scratch do? What will actually, we can move down, Nico says. Okay, Nico says, all right, so Nico's predicting we can move down. We press the green flag. So I need to press it down, and it works. Oh my gosh, my prediction is right. I am a genius. I'm gonna go to Berkeley. This is gonna be awesome. All right, so we got up and down, and just to speed it up a little bit, we're gonna go. And now that I get this, because this is awesome, I have the help of a chorus, we're gonna go left, and then we're gonna go right. And of course, you can walk your students through, what's next, and, just basically how I walk you through it. And then we'll go to motion. Sorry, just looking at the time. We're gonna go, now that we've done Y, the next thing we can do is X. Okay, cool. So we're gonna go X for right. And then before I add that block to the other one, oh, that's right, that's up, that down. This is so sweet. So if that goes X +10, then we're gonna do X, what? Everybody, we're gonna do X positive or -10 for left. Positive or negative? So if we're going to do left arrow, are we going to do a positive X or a negative X? Negative. Thanks, Sachi. So again, throwing in some more binary questioning. Of course, for your students that just feel like, so I always like to go back to like, so I was telling Lena about this and Nick about this too, of like, I go to the YMCA, we do these outdoor group events, and my coach, Coach Kim, she's really awesome in that, like, she'll have, how do I say, exercises. Let's say like, oh, the push-up, for example. So she'll go like, all right, everybody, now you're gonna do push-ups. But what the brilliant thing she does is like, she's like, all right, but before you do the push-ups, if you can't do a regular push-up, cool. You're still, it's inclusive, you're still in it. Just go on your knees and you can still do push-ups on your knees. Cool. But if you can do a regular push-up, awesome. And so I always remember the way that she frames that as also, you can also apply that to code coaching too. So like, for example, you have a whole class of students that never done Scratch before. One good thing you want to do, and I'll go into this in the slides later, is you always want to make easy wins for the students, right? So you can get a sense of the student, and students where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the first time doing it. Well, you want to walk them through directional buttons like this, like where it's only 2 blocks. They can experience a fast win, and whoa, that's like an adrenaline rush, and I'm addicted to this lesson now. This is awesome. But of course, if you have a student where you're like, oh, it's so easy, I'm like I've done Scratch like before, and you have those students too. Well, you can challenge them, and there's another, and of course, as you know, as coders, there are many ways to code the same thing, right? So if you have that student, that one, and you always have that one student of like, oh, so like too good for this class, like too good for Berkeley. All right, so you have the green flag. You can challenge them, and then also do if then, and you want to throw a forever loop. So another way you can program this is if touching, ooh, actually no, it's if, oh, key space, key up arrow, you can also change the Y by 10. So just to show you real quick, and I think something as a code coach too, there's always an easy way to code one thing. Like in this case, the up arrow, you can use 2 blocks. But for that student that's like, whoa, like I'm like, I just need a challenge. 2 blocks is so easy. I can do this in my sleep. Well, you can also challenge them and also teach them how to code in this way too, and go the long scenic route too. But just for your code, code your students, always prefer that easy version and that hard version too. And to keep yourself on your toes as a code coach too. But that's just like a little preview of like how I'll talk to students. But the main thing I wanted to demonstrate was, binary questioning, just going, is it yes or no? Is it left or right? And you'll also just find that, you're not going to get crickets all the time. But usually you'll get crickets when you ask a really huge question of like, which one of these 7 blocks is gonna be the answer, which one? And that's like, whoa, like just think about, when you go and try to buy a candy bar and you just see all that candy, all the candy bars. It's so hard to decide which candy bar to get. Well, usually you should get Reese's, but otherwise, it's always good to just hone that down, especially for students. So let me just jump back into there. Questions about that live coding session? And just as a note, I think it's when you live code with a student, I do the live coding. I especially do this for the big classes. So if you have like your code coaching session of like 4 students in that one room, it's nice to do these big projects and to do a live coding version of it versus say creating 4 separate projects for students. So I always like to make a bigger project and then walk the students through this in this way. But there's definitely a lot of value in live coding in that, well, 1, it can focus the students, but 2, it can answer those live questions too. Also, it's an amazing skill as a coder in general. If the fact that if you can think about it, it's like you're not only coding, but you're public speaking. It's insane. Like I seriously think like people will be able to be paid for this like really well if you can do live coding sessions. But and you could also film your own YouTube videos and monetize that. But all right, let me jump back into slides because we're almost running out of time. And then later on too, so the one reason I like to introduce the space race game because it introduces so many components that will help your students out later. And I also just like to outline that there. Everything from an enemy to a goal to background to win-lose, and then a bonus is a timer. But yeah, for me, this is like a really great introduction into just how to build a game. And to this day, like I hear a lot of feedback from students at the middle school of like, oh my God, like they shared of like their math teacher, like, yo, I made a whole video game. And they have like this such pride about it. And so, but yeah, Space Race, I like to introduce to a lot of beginners, but again, you can use the cards and use the 25 games for Max Wainwright. Oh yeah. Oh, I should have done this earlier, but yeah, problem solving process. But yeah, if you ever find yourself again in a debugging mode, and you do, because yes, we all know, like you're like, oh my God, I got to figure out this bug. A really good way that I've scaffolded myself is like, whoa, let's go back to that problem solving process. And so to teach that framework, I think for all coder school students is huge. I know Lena, you just came in, but yeah, problem solving process is you define the problem or that bug you want to figure out. And then you prepare to work on that problem. So what do you need to prepare to work on that problem you define? Then you try out that problem or that way to solve that problem. And then you reflect on, did that work? If it didn't work, let's go back in that problem solving process cycle and define it again, or maybe try it a different way, prepare in a different way. But it's a great way to put a framework for debugging, which is always really hard in the moment and frustrating. So in the epilogue, yes. So again, how I started, and I feel like how a lot of code coaching is such a new art. Never been done. Well, kind of never been done before in this scale. But yeah, it can feel like that you are in this really deep end called everyday life students, and they can be very demanding with, oh my gosh, like I want to build these AAA games, but I don't know how to make directional buttons yet. But it's not about the deep end. You as the code coach, as the teacher, it's more like you're in a really shallow lake called everyday life students, and you're floating in a boat, and that boat is called your teacher's hat, flipped upside down to make a trusty metaphorical boat. Because that trusty teacher's hat is going to be filled with your bag of tricks that as you keep on code coaching, you will develop that slowly. And like, all the stuff that I'm telling you today, this is from like like hundreds of sessions of like, ooh, that worked, and ooh, that didn't work. And the beautiful thing about our diverse set of students is everybody's different in some kind of different way. So you're going to have these tricks for like the extrovert students or the know-it-all students or the really shy students. But you will develop your bag of tricks as you go along, not as just code coaching students, but then also when you're, say when you become the software engineer and you manage a team. And yes, you're going to have to teach them how to use IRC when Slack gets hacked again. You have to go to IRC, and then you have to remember like what it's like teaching IRC to the 50-year-old that's at your company and like, I want to learn IRC. So yeah, again, teaching is a lifelong transferable skill, the most next to, I don't know, what else? managing money maybe. But yes, but remember, Metroid Dread is great. Oh wait, no, oh, I ruined my own joke. Metroid Dread is great, but never dread your session. So, and then again, how you dread your sessions, you say yes to a student a little too fast, and you start working on a feature that you're not comfortable with and trying to implement it, and then you probably won't be able to fix it because you've never encountered that bug, and no one is happy because you were just trying to, make everybody happy. And something you learn later in life is you can't make everybody happy. So biggest thing is you should make yourself happy, because if you don't make yourself happy and you don't do that self-care, you're gonna dread your days, and that sucks. But Metroid Dread is great. So again, be a salesperson for that which you want to teach. So a really great way to look forward to your sessions is like a Pong. Like I really love teaching Pong or Space Race, and I look forward to that, and I have that in my tool set or in my teacher's bag of tricks. And to go, and I would say even, when you go into a session with a student, is to go in with at least 2 ideas, right? Because, wait, where's that side? Do I have that side there? Oh, I think I do. But anyway, even with like, let's say Keisha, who's been like my really great student lately, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about Space Race, and I can't wait to teach it to Keisha. But when I've done that, there have been a lot of times where that was like, no, I don't feel like it. I was like, no. And I had this whole plan for one thing. So as a code coach, always come up with, 2 little projects. So you want to provide the choice for students, because wait, is that on the next slide? Yes, it is. Oh, thank you yesterday, Jimmy. How to be a salesperson for your students. Giving your students at least, I would say, this number is 2 choices at least, but no more than 3, because again, that choice paradox kicks in. But having like 2 projects of the moment for a certain student is nice, because it gives them that choice. And then when they choose it, they just have more ownership of it. And then you also be, 50% prepared versus like, you're like 100% prepared to teach this thing and they just don't want to do it. And students, just like us, they're moody. And so they just they will feel more of a project when they have a choice over what they can do. Because at the end of the day, control. Yes. So you want to empower the students to feel a sense of control. And then also the fact that you'll have 2 choices or 3 choices in your bag of tricks, you'll also feel control over that, versus some sessions where you just ask, hey, what do you want to do? And then they say this feature and you don't know how to do it, and then everybody feels bad. You want to provide some kind of sense of control, not only for the student, but also for yourself, and for your own mental health. The one thing I want to mention is, in the last couple of moments, students love sprucing up their sprites in Scratch. And it's fun for 1 or 2 sessions, but after that, when they want to keep doing it, assign the sprites, sprucing it up in their own time, because they will spend the whole sessions wanting to do it. And that's not a good use of time. And it'll be super boring. It's kind of cool the first time, because you're like, oh, I get paid to do this. And like, that's kind of cool. But then it gets really boring for you as a code coach. And you just, want to practice your own chops, and figure out a different problem. It's fun for like 1 or 2 sessions. Then it gets really, really boring. So assign that design sprites. Teach students how to design sprites and how to use certain things for like 10 minutes or something. But then assign that for homework. That's not a good use of code coaching time, in my experience. It gets really boring. And yeah, going back to students, the big thing that I always think about is people of all ages don't exactly always remember what you said, but they always remember how you made them feel, always. So as we come to a close, you want to make your students feel good about themselves. So going back to binary questions or compliments, and always remember to compliment the students at the end of the session, because it also feels good to give out compliments. So like oh wow, that was your hashtag big brain. You are hella smart for that one. Oh my gosh, you're totally right about control. I did not see, you were right. We should have used that block too. Give me a digital dap. Yeah, so something like that. Or geez, look how crazy your code is. Look how much we've accomplished. Let's review what we've accomplished this session. It's always nice to give out some things, cook things for people, compliment people. But yeah, make your student feel good, because you make people feel good, you feel good. Everyone's good. All right. So that's it. So that's my Scratch handle. I also made another one to be more official, but if you wanted to peruse, did I use that right? If you wanted to look through my projects, feel free to just grab whatever. But most of my projects I grabbed from those sources that I got earlier, or I'll just go through Scratch every once in a while and just like, ooh, that project is interesting, and I just like clone it and then like take certain components and then build them in. Just like we tinker with anything, tinker with different Scratch projects, but just have fun with it. And I think, you know, the real talk about Scratch is the best way to learn Scratch is just to like, I don't know, well, if you're of legal drinking age, grab a beer and just start messing around, having fun with Scratch and like just start making things. And you'll find that you can prototype things a lot faster. Oh, and the one thing, if you're new to Scratch and you realize this and you're coming from Python, for example, Scratch doesn't do any error reporting. And that's like the one really annoying thing about Scratch. Whereas in, you know, Python, you'll be like, you know, you mess up some syntax error and you get some error reporting and you know how to debug that. Whereas Scratch, if something doesn't work, it just doesn't work. So, you know, for the beginners, like, that's the one frustrating thing. You can't trace error reporting. Ooh, but maybe that's a project for somebody here. Maybe you can build that plugin and become like Scratch famous and then go to MIT for your PhD. So that's like a sorely needed tool. There is no error reporting in Scratch. That's the only unfortunate thing. But otherwise, follow the tutorials. Stand on the shoulders of giants because they've already made those books for you. Q&A, any questions about, I know, sorry, that was like a blurb, a lot of stuff. Any questions right now? Negative. Oh, negative. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's okay. If not, it is 8 o'clock. The Warriors opener is happening right now that I'm going to run to. But yes, Coach Steven, yes.
So I don't have a question, but I just want to like compliment you for like describing how you hone in a variety of different students and that binary technique of questioning and prompting. Like that's super helpful, and yeah, I thank you so much for that.
Oh yeah. No, that is like that is like the one technique I always fall back on, because you will most likely more get a response as a code coach, and that feels good, right? You know, you don't want to speak to a room full of crickets, right? So, but yeah, it's like, that's, if there's one thing you learn today, is learn binary questioning, because throughout your life until you know, get old and pass away, that is the one technique you can use with like everybody, and like you will forever be remembered as like, wow, that person was so great at asking questions because they always made me feel good and they didn't make me feel dumb. So, but yeah, binary questioning. Like, is it blue or is it red? Is it yes or is it no? Yeah.
I'm glad you guys all got to witness why Jimmy is so beloved by his students and his fellow colleagues at Berkeley and Berkeley Unified.
I also bought my students gift cards, and that was like, it was this weird COVID gift. I was like, it's COVID, weird childhood. Here's a gift card.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the secret. Bribe the students.
That's right.
Well, this one easy trick.
One easy trick. If you code this Pong game, gonna gonna give you a V-Buck. But yeah, if any questions, you know, feel free to reach out. But or like,
Thank
if
you.
you're like, I need a Scratch game, and then maybe, you know, if I have one, I'll send you a link. But yeah, those books are just valuable. Just use those books, like have it open during a session. Like, don't feel shame about it. Like, because, you know, you got too many other things to worry about as Berkeley students, right? So, and it's already there. It's already written. It's like hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in these things. So use it. You know, so.
Jimmy, can you share your slide?
Yes. So let
cool.
me share I'll get the link for the slide deck.
Thank you.
And then put that in the chat right now. Here we go. There it is.
Great.
You need to
Thanks
expand.
so
and come up
much,
with, I
Jimmy.
think.
This is really helpful.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. No, yeah. Main thing is, yeah. You never have to dread your code coaching session. Don't dread them like I did for some of them, but yeah, have fun with them. Yeah, just, you know, be real about it. That's the real talk about Scratch.
Thank you, Jimmy.
All right.
Have a great night, everybody.
All right, everybody. All right.
Thanks so much.
Later. We'll see you guys. All right.
Have a good night. Bye.
All right.